Just to start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia and recognise the continuing connection to land, water and culture. And our team's research is on the land of the Tharawal people. And I live and present to you now from the land of the Gundungurra people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. So this presentation today is about red Chittagong cattle, an Indigenous breed to help tackle the challenges of model animal production systems. And I'd like to acknowledge the authors of this work, of the manuscript, that hopefully you can all read shortly, to Nani Das, to Rafiq Islam, to Natu Ramsaka, particularly to the Bangladesh Livestock Research Institute for providing most of the information that's actually in this presentation today and having the initiative to preserve what I believe is a truly remarkable genetic resource. So my work and my group, we call ourselves the Livestock Production and Welfare Group out of the School of Life and Environmental Sciences out of the University of Sydney in Australia. So we're just southwest, around 40 kilometres southwest of Sydney on the east coast of Australia. All of our work, a lot of our work is actually focused on Australia and Queensland, but we see also an ability here to use some of our expertise also to help other people, obviously, in this global world of ours. One of those places, through the connections of Rafiq Islam, who's the second author on this manuscript, his connections through Bangladesh actually enabled all this work. And here's a picture of the breed that I'll be talking about right here today, and that's red Chittagong breed. So if you like, I'll be starting off with an overview about our industry challenges in our group, and then really driving through to this breed, and then taking a little one step further just to show some parallel between the diversity, the opportunity that we have to exploit some of the diversity that actually exists within breeds, if you like, within our more modern breeds as well. So if you haven't already seen it, I thought I'd start with this overarching piece of work that was done by Harwitz and Edie out of CSIRO. And it basically shows these mega, if you like, our challenges, our mega trends facing Australian agriculture over the coming 20 years or so. So if you like, we know that we're going to have a hungrier world and a wealthier world, working away from the top right of this diagram, if you like, to the bottom left, that we're going to have a bumpier ride. We've got globalization, we've got climate change, we've got environmental change impacting us right now, and particularly in Australia and West USA, I believe, is similar challenges to us. We've been through bushfires. As I look out my window now, it's pretty wet outside, but similar times last year were extremely dry. So very much a changing climate is facing us right now. And also on that bumpier ride, I think also, given our recent challenges with COVID, you could probably class the whole pandemic piece in this bumpier ride as well. Along these same lines, we've got choosier customers, we've got information empowered consumers, but we also have these transformative technologies that are at our aid as well. So if you like, that's one of the focuses of our group now is how we use these transformative technologies to meet these challenges that are facing us now. So I guess to reword all those challenges that are all in those, if you like, 5 intersecting circles, we reword that to say to our if you like, our vision is to profitably and sustainably produce more, if you like, quality food in a riskier environment. So our group partners with transformative technology providers in industry to address these challenges. And I've just included a website there if you'd like to see some of the work that we're doing. One part of that work is working around food security with developing countries, but there's a whole range of other programs that we work on. If you'd like, go to that site and you can see where we work. And if you like, we work in this intersection here where I've drawn this red star between the bumpier ride, our wealthier world, choosier customers, and we partner with tech providers to, if you like, meet these challenges. So I've presented 5 circles there. I'd suggest to you, though, that there may be, well, another circle in there. Is there a 6th megatrend? So a couple of days ago, I reached out to our Australian Bureau of Statistics and looked at our farmer terms of trade across time, and that's costs relative to income in Australia. And it's really remained constant over the past 20 years. But one thing that really sticks out in terms of the % contribution to the costs of our farmers to operate are wages. Wages really stick out, and they're around 25% of costs. It's really dependent on the commodity that you're producing, but overall, our Australian Bureau of Statistics suggests that wages are by far the biggest cost for our farmers. So it doesn't really, it's quite obvious then that systems that can simplify whilst maintaining income can typically reduce people's wages. And on top of that, then, if you take an extension of that, management simplification typically encourages monocultures. I say typically encourages monocultures to enable that simplification of systems, and by so doing that, reduce the amount of people that we have working or wages on farm. So, if you like, I drew as similarly as I could to the CSIRO work on there. Another circle there, which I'm calling monocultures at scale, is my 6th megatrend. And what I mean by that is we're getting this diversity reduction to increase farmer terms of trade. And I'm not suggesting that's necessarily the best way to go, but it is a way it's very important around these reducing costs of production. It's actually something that's in our farmers' control. I'm not suggesting that this is in all a bad thing, but it is leading to this diversity reduction, and which I'd call the 6th megatrend. So what are we losing? I believe we're losing our capacity to help tackle the challenges of our future production systems. Or if you like rewording that, I really think we're losing our resource base to create our future scapes in line of the theme of this conference today. So, but we are doing this in a bumpier environment. So, and if we combine both of those things, this loss in diversity alongside a bumpier or a riskier environment, a really great example of that is through something like COVID. It's highly risky. So a key message for this presentation today is, given that we have 75% of the world's cattle in developing countries, even though they produce 35% of food, if you like, there's 35% of the beef generated off these 75% of the world's cattle, which are in developing countries. Perhaps there should be a renewed focus on maintaining this diversity within those cattle, just as an example, within these cattle populations for our future scapes. I just posed that to this conference here today, and perhaps we could discuss that further in our question session. So if you like, the remainder of my presentation in all 7 minutes that I have left is just talking about our scape resource. So that's case study 1, which is the red Chittagong breed, around the diversity that exists or the opportunities that we have around that breed. And case study 2 is diversity within our own monocultures. Is there still, even though we call them monocultures, is there still diversity there within our cattle populations, within, if you like, a very much refined breed? So just quickly taking a step to case 1, just the Bangladesh overview. There's 160 million people in Bangladesh, which is and agriculture, livestock, forestry and fisheries together contribute around 15% of GDP. 40% of people that are employed in Bangladesh are through agriculture, livestock, forestry and fisheries. So it's still a massive employer in that country. And this is an interesting one. Around 87% of households rely on agriculture in rural areas for at least part of their income. So it's very, very important for a lot of the people in Bangladesh. In the same breath, there's 24 million cattle in Bangladesh, and around half of all households own cattle, which is around 1.5 cattle. So if you like, this is a population that's very connected with their cattle. So livestock and households live side by side, and that introduces a few risks as well, particularly when we think about zoonotic diseases. So what I was asked to talk to you about today is this red Chittagong breed, and here you see a few pictures of the red Chittagong breed on the left-hand side. If you haven't seen them before, extremely good-looking animal. I very much think that they're an awesome animal. And it's estimated that around 15% of the cattle in Bangladesh, that's around 3.6 million cattle, are this red Chittagong breed. And as the name infers, they are a reddish colour. They come from the Chittagong region in Bangladesh, which is down the southeast. So you may well have heard of Cox's Bazar, Rohingya people. Around that area is where the red Chittagong breed is really originated from. But I'd suggest here too that from the surveys that we looked at from the review, which is in our manuscript, I believe we really need a well-designed survey on top of what's already been done to benchmark this breed, its number and its distribution in the country. It's a dual-purpose breed, originally for draft, also significant religious purpose as well, red being a very important colour. Just in terms of its production, very high levels of protein and fat in its milk, only producing around 1,000 litres per lactation at the upper end, but please consider the birth weight of these animals at around 15 kilos and the mature weight of a male around 340 kilos or 180 kilo female. So very small, quite small animals. And you can see one of the herdsmen here. This person wasn't overly tall. Probably the breed's coming just above his hip. So, but if we translate that to, if you like, the larger animals we have in our modern production systems, more of your Holstein Friesian type animal, it's more equivalent to 6,000 litres per lactation. So if you like, on par, if you think about the size of these animals. And if you like, Khan summarised this to say that the lifetime productive performance of the breed was actually better than other indigenous breeds in Bangladesh, and importantly, crossbreds. These are exotic breeds coming in, a lot of those actually from Australia, Holstein Friesians and Jerseys coming into the country. And that's largely due to the improved fertility and survival of the breed. So I mentioned there the problems that could be faced around cohabiting, if you like, cattle and humans together. I really apologise for the size of the slide off to the left. This is just to demonstrate the amount or the pressure that's on those cattle and the humans in Bangladesh around disease in that country. And this is a One Health prioritisation of zoonotic diseases. And you can see there anthrax, brucellosis, Nipah virus, rabies, other zoonotic diseases and tuberculosis. So for people, a challenging environment, but also the breed, a challenging environment. This breed has evolved in amongst foot and mouth disease, tuberculosis, brucellosis, also with a nutrition of around 7% crude protein. This is the levels of crude protein being offered to these animals. So if you like, you could say a disease resilient, highly efficient animal evolved to produce on not much. Here's my summary of this breed on top of being in quite a hot tropical environment. So I've just included some data there from Ahmed et al. In 2015 on the prevalence of diseases and parasites for the breed. So you can see their gastrointestinal parasites as a percent of cattle. You can see they're overall high, but red Chittagong cattle having lower levels of gastrointestinal parasites, blood parasites, and also things like subclinical mastitis. So I think there's a real opportunity here to really reveal what's going on with this breed, answering the questions as to how they do this. How are they so resilient? Not only to exploit in a concerted genetic selection program in that country, revealing, if you like, the diversity that exists in resilience. So this is overall, imagine what could be done if we could actually then select for these things within the breed. I think there's a really concerted effort that could go on there around breeding in that country, but also taking the next step around, asking the question about how do they do it? So that made me think about the diversity loss within modern breeds. So what's happening with our own breeds? So I'll just quickly touch on this in around a minute or so. So I'm going to go through this quite quickly. Here's some on-animal sensor data actually taken from a Bangladeshi, another Islam, Ashraful Islam, who's going back to Bangladesh very shortly. Actually, he's just finishing his PhD. This just shows some of the work around the diversity that exists in panting duration within our modern breed. So these are for Angus cattle in feedlot. And this is panting duration monitored by ear tag technology now. You can see that there's huge differences in panting between these animals monitored through time. I won't touch on the other behavior states there, but just to say that there is substantial variability in our own genetic population, our own cattle that we have now faced with us. Opportunity, if you like, to select from diversity around heat resilience within those animals now. And that's forming the basis of a whole new research program. I won't touch on this too much, just to say that we inserted these sensor logger devices in and what we saw in terms of panting duration through time, which is our way of looking at the diversity and how those animals reflected or responded to that environment, the levels of internal body temperature reflected those panting levels. So we could see that there's these diverse animals within the same breed responding to the same environment. So our next if you like, combining those two is what I'd like to talk about now in our future Bangladesh research program. We wanted to be really promoting the value of indigenous breeds and also improving the nutritive value by simple changes in management within Bangladesh. We believe we can double animal source protein in that country just by simple changes in management. Looking at things like are there unique attributes to the meat and milk of that breed? And by displaying or showing or revealing the value of that breed, I really believe will enable it to continue in that country and enable that diversity to be maintained. Dedicated research programs, I touched on them earlier about benchmarking and maintaining genetic diversity. We really don't know what we have in that country. And likewise, we really don't know what we even have within our modern breeds. We need to be revealing those mechanisms of disease and pest resilience. And in the future, we're wanting to really combine case studies. How can we combine our advanced technology to reveal the resilience of those animals in Bangladesh, to reveal those extremes in the resilience within the red Chittagong cattle breed? So if you'd like any further correspondence around this, please get in contact on this email address here, or please go to our website. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that, Cameron. That's really interesting insight into the Chittagong cattle breed. I'm just going to start by asking a question myself, and then I'll encourage anyone else if they want to ask a question. The first question I wanted to ask was around the mechanisms that you think improve the efficiency of this breed. Do you think that's related to changes in rumen fermentation or grazing behaviour, or both? Or have you got any insights into why that is?
I have no idea, Anita, and maybe that's a great question to put to the people that are here today. I mean, I know that we could gain some insights from the work that we've already done in our, if you like, more modern breeds. And by the way, red Chittagong breed is believed to be it can go back around 10,000 or so years. I think they've had a long time to evolve the traits that they have. I think, I think it could be something to do with what's happening in the rumen around retention time, maybe the processing of that feed. I really don't know. As always, it's probably going to be a combination of things. But then you can ask, okay, so if it's more efficiently, if you like, utilizing the feed that it has around that 7% crude protein to survive, how is that interacting with, if you like, the parasite resilience piece, and how is that then interacting with the whole immune system? Foot and mouth, all these diseases that are in that country, and these animals still survive at quite a high fertility rate, which is, to me, is an incredible thing. But it's a long way to say, Anita, that I don't know.
Yeah.
And this, I guess, on that, and that's why I'm sort of saying that it's really an unknown for that breed, that there is a program going with the Bangladeshi government to try and maintain that genetic resource, and that's about it. So nothing's really been done to drive into these internal mechanisms in the breed. We're stepping in to help with the nutrition around simple changes in forage management. We think we can drastically increase that level of crude protein in the diet. That's a first step that we're working on. But yeah, I welcome any other collaboration to step through these mechanisms. And the Bangladesh Livestock Research Institute, I'm sure, will be happy to collaborate as well.
Yeah, so do you think that there's any opportunity to actually use this breed outside of Bangladesh, to use it sort of in other countries, particularly in warmer climates?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, they haven't really even touched the genetic resource that's there around dedicated breeding programs to improve things like, the amount of production, or obviously the content of the milk's quite high already, but that might be if you like, a consequence of the lower levels of production. So, that's something that can be definitely looked at in terms of the more challenging environments. I'd also think that there's if we can work out the hows, there could also be, given the advances that have already happened now in terms of genomic selection and working through the mechanisms of how these animals do these things, maybe there's also an opportunity there for these animals to guide us towards those more resilient animals within our modern breeds as well. I mean, I only just touched on in our 15 minutes the diversity within our own modern breeds as well. So that's absolutely huge. And that I didn't mention was in a feedlot environment as well.
Oh, okay.
In a highly controlled environment, we're seeing huge differences in how these animals respond. And that data there was for heat wave events. I didn't mention that as well. So that was for the data that I showed for panting through time was for quite a heat wave event. So, you know, that's the diversity that exists within our modern breeds. And modern breeds, I mean, so they were predominantly Angus type animals in feedlot. So I think to answer your question, Anita, and I'm going a long way around this, I think that that breed has a strong value, not only for the Bangladeshi people, but I think the breed also, given the challenges that it's been faced with, there's a strong pressure in terms of environmental challenge, has a strong role to play for potentially our future challenges. And who knows what they're going to be, right? Given that we've just faced them, and one of the reasons I'm presenting you from home now is because of my mixed environment now due to COVID. Who knows what's in front? And I guess a theme for this presentation is to really reiterating the fact that we need to be maintaining diversity to, if you like, meet our future challenges and create our future scapes.
Okay, so I did want to ask you a bit about how the Chittagong breed compares to other small cattle. So, for instance, Jersey or even lowline Angus. Are they sort of comparable, or?
Yep.
Yep.
So one of the first pieces of work I did actually as a scientist, actually in New Zealand, out of Dairy NZ, out of Hamilton, was looking at small breeds versus large breeds, and there was a thought back then that small breeds such as Jersey had inherently higher levels of protein and fat in their milk. Yeah, but what I did, I brought together most of the research on the size of the animal and the protein and fat content in the milk, and it appears it doesn't seem to be a breed specific thing. That if you get small Friesians, very small Friesians, like the size of Jerseys, that they were actually quite similar in terms of their milk solid content in the milk. So I don't think it's, maybe the protein and fat part isn't something that's really perhaps breed specific to red Chittagong. It might just be that they're 250 kilos mature weight. And what I haven't done is combine that with the data that's there for, you know, the Mackle et al. And the other work that was done on the size of the animal, pulling all that together and seeing where this breed lines up in terms of protein content, fat content. And a long story again, sorry, Anita, around and I see Derek look at his watch. So just on the fat and protein content, also that there's this whole thing about Brodie's law, right, around the size of the animal and the surface area of the animal is the surface area of the rumen. So smaller animal, larger surface area for the body weight. And that could be something to do with it as well, around how these animals are able to cope with these higher fiber or less of a quality feed. Yeah,
and that's certainly something I think we see in New Zealand with the Holsteinisation of sort of the New Zealand dairy industry in the last sort of 20 years. We know that Jersey breeds just last so much better in our pastoral sort of temperate environment, given that we can't feed them high amounts of grain and that they have to do a lot of walking. So yeah, I definitely think that what you're saying sort of aligns with what we sort of find here in New Zealand.
And maybe one of the reasons why in the strain trial that was done in New Zealand, those overseas Holsteins didn't perform so well either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.